Recording.
Yep, we're ready to go.
Okay, we'll begin this hearing by reading the notice of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that the following hearing will be held in the Bonneville County Courthouse, 605 North Capitol Avenue, Idaho Falls, Idaho, January 25th, 2021 at 2:30 p.m. By the Bonneville County Commissioners for the purpose of a public hearing in relation to an appeal by Monica Sell, Dale Schneider, and Robert Hoff with the Planning and Zoning Commission's approval of the request of Double L Enterprises LLC, Landon Excavating, for a use hearing to allow a gravel pit in agricultural A1 zone. The location of this is on the east side of 25th East between 65th South and 81st South, Bonneville County, Idaho. There was a legal description published along with the instructions of how to view or participate with the COVID restrictions. This was published January 10th, 2021 in the Post Register. To help this go smoothly, I'll go through a process since this is that we will follow, since this is a little different than a regular public planning and zoning hearing. It is an appeal. This is an appeal hearing filed by Monica Sell, Robert Hoff, and Dale Schneider for a use hearing to approve a new gravel pit by Double L Enterprises Landon Excavating, which was heard by the Planning Board on December 9th, 2020, approved on a vote of 4-3. There was a previous hearing regarding this request for a gravel pit, which was held on June 3rd, 2020. Most of the Planning Board making up the quorum for the new hearing held on December 9th, 2020 were in attendance at that first hearing. In that you cannot tell what information was used by the Planning Commission in making the decision for the current appeal hearing. The Commission, without objection, will include the minutes for both hearings as part of the record for this appeal hearing.
Yes.
Okay. For the record, we do have the transcript from both planning and zoning hearings and have all of the testimony that was provided. I think you can see that we have an awful lot, and that will maybe help explain some of the limitations we're going to put on this hearing. In as much as the county commissioners have received and reviewed that testimony made available to us, there's no need to testify again unless you have specific new information that we listed on the appeal. We also have several emails and letters that have been submitted for this appeal, and they're being made part of the record without objection. In fact, we do have a number of them just to make sure that everybody's aware on the ones we've received for sure. I will read those into the record so that we don't have any duplicated testimony. No reason to testify again if we already have it here. The emails, these will be in alphabetical order. If you're listening and hear your name, you won't be asked to testify again. But if you think you've submitted something, you'll have the opportunity, but that will be probably limited to 2 or 3 minutes. Not the appellants. We'll explain that, because that will be a little different. We want to make sure that the appellants and the original applicant have plenty of time to make their case. David Anderson, Jeff Armstrong, Karen Armstrong, B. Corey B. Rick Barnes, Bryce Blankenship, Beverly Cable, William Cottle, Ronald DeFelici, Lindsay Draper, Vicki Duffy, Robin Dumas, Porter MP, Katie Evans, Stephen Paula Feltz, Greg Gibbs, Rich Gritter, Carrie and Jill Halverson, Jeanette Joff, David and Kathy Johnson, Stephen and Robin Longhurst, Sandra McCafferty, Whitney Morris, Kimberly Mowry, Bryce Oregon, Judy Osborne, Jeannie Perkins, Trudy Poole, Matthew Rouse, Kevin Rhodes, Rebecca Rhodes, Alicia Rhoda, and Jamie Rhoda, Kay Rose, Hopi Solomon, Sonia Schatt, Natalie Schmidt, Dale Schneider, Leah Schneider, Craig Scoville, Carol Teichman and Terrell Tanstrom. We'll probably look at those who have listed to sign up here today and cross-reference that, making sure we don't have duplicate testimony. It should also be noted that we have in our possession the minutes and findings from previous hearings that have been in an A1 zone that have been considered and approved or disapproved for the commission to review to assure we are consistent with our consideration of the facts and the reasons used for gravel pits. We will allow each of the appellants, and I understand you're breaking it up in three, reasonable time to present their part of the appeal, and then allow the applicant a reasonable amount of time to present his case. There will then be time given to staff to present additional information and respond to questions from the commission. We won't be taking questions. This is where we take testimony, but we don't take staff. Questioning of the staff is not allowed. Okay. There will be time given. Okay, after that, we will allow new testimony related to the appeal from others who have not submitted written information or testified before. We also have a list of those who testified at the last two hearings. Unless you have something to add to that, you can make it brief and point out which element of the appeal you are referring to. Those who testify will be giving a maximum of 3 minutes each to present their information, after which time will be given to the appellants to rebut any of the information that was submitted by others during the hearing. The commissioners will then have an opportunity to question anyone who testifies to any issues with the information provided from others at the hearing. We will take this under consideration at the end of this hearing, review the information submitted, prepare proposed findings, post it on the website with the required public meeting notice. That will be a public meeting that anybody's willing to observe. Will not be a public hearing. We will not take any more testimony as we're not allowed to outside of a public hearing. So I guess to begin with, the application is Monica Sell, Robert A. Hoff, and Dale Schneider. I don't know how you divided this up, but you're welcome to, this owl will pick it up, maybe move to that chair and then speak loudly. You don't need to come up real close to it.
You want me to sit here?
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Commissioners Roger Christensen and Brian Reed. Thank you kindly for your time. My name is Monica
You
Sell.
reminded me of one thing on this that I failed to do.
Okay.
Commissioner Brian Reed is here, myself, Commissioner Christensen, Commissioner John Walker, unfortunately had a death in his immediate family last night, is asked to be excused, so, okay.
I'm going to go through the criteria for our appeal.
You need your address, name and address.
Oh, Monica Sell, 2951 East, 81 South, Idaho Falls, Idaho, 83406. Number one, assess the impact on existing agricultural operations. The current agricultural operations on this property are farming. There is no existing gravel pit on this property, and there are no gravel pit operations on the surrounding properties. The current operations on the surrounding properties are farming, haying, and recreational horsemanship. The predominant use of land surrounding the property within 1 mile are agricultural lands for raising crops. In addition, 2 to 5 miles to the west, south, and southwest, the predominant use of land is agricultural for raising crops, with hobby farms and rural residential mixed in. The closest producing gravel pits are approximately 5 miles away, and they are clustered in industrial areas. Number two, establish the need for proposed change. The recent completion of multiple retail and commercial buildings in the area of Sunnyside and South 25th East, and the recent building and paving of streets for residential and mixed use has demonstrated that existing gravel resources in their current locations are adequate for development and can be delivered safely and effectively and competitively. The need has not been established because the needs are more than being met with ample competition and fair prices from several suppliers. Future needs have not been established, and it is an educated guess at best and based on economic conditions. Number 3, assess the proposed benefit to the county and neighborhood. Another producer of aggregate resources will introduce more supply to the market. In theory, this will lower demand and pricing. But given that this supplier will sell products at market prices, the only advantage will be possible transportation cost savings. The pit operator will benefit from revenues and contribute to the tax base. The neighbors will not benefit. The noise of crunching rocks, backup alarms, air brakes, roaring engines, and slamming truck tailgates will fill the air along with dust. This sounds like an industrial setting. Number 4, assess the compatibility with the comprehensive plan. This property is in the urban residential zone of the comprehensive plan map. This zone stretches south to the Idaho Falls Country Club. Having the comprehensive plan is essential as we have seen what kind of growth can happen in short periods of time by looking at Boise's growth. It is imaginable to see mixed use fill in this entire area in just a few years. This area most certainly is a center of vitality, as its prime location centered in the middle of golf courses, near medical corridor, and close proximity to shopping, dining, and entertainment. This will become the definition of livability if planners focus on appropriate growth patterns and avoid inserting a gravel pit in the path of growth, which will be a mismatch in planning. A gravel pit will diminish the values of the land for agricultural use today, as well as diminish the development in the future. Planners were thinking well when they developed the comprehensive plan, knowing that the intent of urban residential was to create and maintain residential living areas that are safe, convenient, and attractive, as well as give personal satisfaction to the residents. Suburban mixed use is coming in the next 20 years. Gravel pits do not belong in suburban mixed use. The current industrial zone is located well west of this property and is located near the railroad tracks and the Yellowstone Highway. This is an appropriate place for noise, dust, and traffic related to operating a gravel pit. Both the comprehensive plan and the zoning ordinance almost insist that the agricultural value of land be preserved and the full use of land for agricultural purposes and production of crops be prioritized and embraced. In Chapter 7A1, the primary use of land in the A1 agricultural zone is for agriculture and livestock raising. In Section 1704 uses, the following uses shall be considered, which includes number 4, gravel pits. The word considered does not give complete freedom to gravel pits. The fact gravel pits are not in the Section 702 permitted use tells us that careful deliberation as to where and why of considered uses were important concepts to the original writers of the zoning ordinance in 1959. The current request of buying a piece of agricultural land surrounded by agricultural land with no gravel pit nearby for the sole purpose of digging a gravel pit and not producing a crop is why the writers put in considered use. It is to protect surrounding farm owners from non-agricultural exploits. Document after document from the county emphasizes agricultural use in agricultural areas and to maintain optimum conditions. Agriculture and the ag industry is perhaps the most important single element of Bonneville County's economic base. It is intended that the viable agricultural areas of the county be preserved and maintained, consistent with existing and future needs for agricultural products, forest, and open space. In particular, productive lands with fertile soils under irrigation must not be unnecessarily diverted from farm use. Land suitable and designated for homes, business, and industry, and other land not capable of being farmed appear to be adequate to meet the projected development needs for the time span covered by this plan. This gravel pit is not compatible with comprehensive plan, nor is it the intent of the zoning ordinance. These guidelines are meant to distinguish between bona fide farming and other agricultural activities which take place in rural areas and identify which are not truly agricultural. And finally, which are better located in non-farm areas and to encourage non-farm related uses or industries to relocate into industrial surroundings. The question to be answered is, what is the highest use of the land? Number 5, assess the proximity to fire protection. Finding that they erred in providing us an application. Number 6, assess proximity to police protection. Erred in providing application. Number 7, assess the impact on traffic loads, assess public roads, quality of public roads, etc. The applicants stated they would improve their frontage. Who pays for the rest of the road improvements? The clustering of trucks at times will put a strain not only on the structural integrity of the road, but also congestion. The edges of 25th are already deteriorating and are repaired with temporary patches today. What are the solutions to prevent structural damage to the entire road and to prevent safety hazards of trucks entering and exiting the highway? Number 8, the health department location with respect to wind patterns that will not subject living areas to smoke, odors, and dust. Erred in proving approval. Number 9, need for buffers that's not compatible as stated in the number 4 comprehensive plan. The floodplain will be addressed today by Dale Schneider. Availability of sufficient utilities. Where's the water coming from? What is the effect on the water table? Number 12, the preservation of scenery and ecological areas. The commission erred in failing to assess the damage to this unique scenic and ecological aspects of the surrounding area. This assessment is most important to the area users and residents. Preservation of unique scenic and ecological area has been used and taken care of for the last 125 years. To destroy this for financial expediency would be a travesty. The damage would be irreplaceable and permanent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Who would be next? Grab that same chair she was in. State your name and address for the record, please.
Kirsten Hoskins, 2093 East, 81st South.
Are you one of the applicants? Okay, right now we're taking them from the appellants.
Okay.
And Hoskins,
That's me.
Okay,
Robert Hoff, 10741 South, 25 East, Bonneville County. Thank you, Commissioners. For years, I've been
speak loud.
promising Steve Sir a movie of the flood, and I was going through some old pictures the other day, and darned if I didn't find these two 8mm movies of the flood that my dad and I took from our airplane. Haven't seen them for 50 years. I don't know what the quality is. There's probably some personal stuff in there too, but I'm gonna leave them with you, and Steve can process them as needed and maybe enlighten you a little bit on what actually might happen. So there they are right there.
It'd be good you're aware that you're making the personal stuff on there part of the public record if it's.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything incriminating in there, Roger, so I think we're all right.
Okay. Except how old you are, you're taken with 8mm.
I was gonna say I didn't help Matt Taylor build a bridge, but I've come pretty close to it. I'm 79.
Okay, continue.
Oh, let's see, and I do have some further exhibits that I'll put in your hands. This is the cover letter and Mr. and some exhibit that was prepared for me. And I did testify at the hearing before, and I think I've got, since then, there's been some things come to light, so I think I've got some new information that you wouldn't have probably considered at the zoning board, and I think, Roger, I think that's.
There was a very lengthy discussion on floodplains, so just focus on the new.
Yeah, yeah. I'll read this too, it keeps me on track.
Okay.
My condolences to the Walker family, by the way. Thank you for considering our opinion not to permit commercial gravel pit as proposed on 25th East 73rd South. Since the planning board hearing was conducted, significant and important new information and data has been brought forward affecting this consideration. In addition to all the points that have been presented, these facts, flood, I can say I was there. The night of February 11th, 1962, my brother Jim and I worked into the wee hours trying to save the upper progressive canal as it came onto our place. With our little loader and our gunny sacks and mud, we attempted to save the bank. And we worked till, I think it was probably 4 a.m. or so, and we finally gave up, realizing that we had something more than just a high canal on our hands. We had to give up, and the next day, February 12th, my logbook shows the flight that we took in my dad's airplane as our airstrip was above the flooded area. And we flew up and down inspecting what our neighbors are going through. It was like a river that had found its old channel again. The water was not just a foot or so, it was 3 to 4 feet. It was up to the windows in the houses along there. And not just for a few hours, but for 2 or 3 days. If you look at the placement of this gravel pit, you'll see that it essentially reduces the channel flow through that area by more than 50%. There's about a mile wide channel there, and that half mile will essentially put a dam for half of that, more than half of that. So it will narrow that channel considerably. I think all of the considerations, the proposal of putting a ditch around it and one thing or another, it would just be totally inadequate. There's just no way that flow is going to be the same if it's half as wide. And any farmer, Brian or anybody this farm knows that the wider the ditch is, the lower the water level is. So I really disagree with the solutions proposed. I don't think they work, and I think, and in fact, it could be demonstrated that you're putting at risk all the mitigation that's been done, all the house, raising the houses a foot or so in that area is going to do no good if this flood were to occur again. Now that's a problem that will only happen periodically. About 4 years ago, we did have a flash flood down Henry and Taylor Creek, and again, it reminded me how volatile that water is out there. If it had been combined with melting snow, we would have had another mini flood like the 62. So it's not, I think it's not a 100-year thing. I think it's possible to have even with the Ryrie Dam in, I don't think, these hills can hold a lot of moisture and it can drop into the valley really quickly. It's only a mile or so down and it just floods out. That's a problem that's only happened periodically, as I say. But I have a new problem. It's a continuous problem. It won't ever stop. In fact, it'll be there for the next indefinite time. It'll never be remedied, never be fixed. And it's considered, I didn't really realize after looking into it and have a fellow prepared the paper for me, that this is something that we hadn't considered before. And I think in the future, we're going to have to consider more and more with dams. I went online and did a little study, and it's an issue that's showed up fairly recently or the past few years. And it's something that we need to consider in the future where we put excavations like this in populated areas. I was contacted by a nuclear scientist neighbor, Huang Yin. Huang has a master's degree in nuclear science and studies environmental radiation proliferation. He has prepared his brief explanation for us to show you in dealing with this pit operation is allowed. As you can see, we're in an elevated radon area, and most importantly, just upwind to what is the fastest growing residential area in Bonneville County. Predominantly southwest wind speeds average at 8 miles per hour. And will carry these micron particles, which are down to 5 microns, very, very tiny particles of radiation and silica dust. And it'll be carried for 5 miles or more, depending on the wind, right into thousands of residencies, putting this pit directly upwind in front of our most active growth area, which show utmost disregard for our citizens there and their children for the next indefinite period of time. What I've seen are these are demonstrated facts and do represent a real threat. Mr. Yin is here, back here, if you'd like to query him about questions, if you'd like, he'd be glad to come out and tell you, give you some enlightenment on this. And you have his presentation he gave me, which is fairly short, clear presentation. One other point I'd like to make is about the plan. Again, I'll refer to my age, I guess. I served on the zoning board in between 74 and 83. And we were involved in updating the comprehensive plan, did major comprehensive planning there. The comp plan was conceived. Typical gravel pits were small temporary holes dug to access gravel to build our farm to market roads. Not much more than 15, maybe 20 feet deep and 100 by 100 wide. Not the commercial 1/4 by half mile, 35-foot hole with crushing and other continuous operations going on for years and years. It seems to me that the spirit of this policy to list gravel pits as approvable did not conceive of operations of the scale presented. This is industrial, and I believe our planners would have seen this as industrial given the foresight. The county commissioners did deny a like-sized gravel pit January 29, 2009. So there's a precedent for this, just based on the issues outside of the issues I just presented. Not considering floodplain problems or even radon or silica dust factors. These alone should give us pause. It is my hope that you, our county commissioners, will consider the health, welfare, and quality of life we look to you to protect and deny this proposal. Thank you.
And we will make this
You can have it.
part of the record also,
Yeah,
if that's
thank you.
okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question, or do you want to wait till the end?
We'll wait till the end since they have the opportunity to follow up. Now, is there a third? This would need to be Mr. Schneider.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I sit up here?
We prefer back.
Over here?
Yeah, this picks you up really well.
Okay,
Just speak loud. Name and address, please.
okay. My name is Dale Schneider. I live at 7419 South, 25th East on Hit Road. My property is literally adjacent to the proposed pit. We are in there's an 80-acre section there. We're in the northwest corner, and they want to put the pit on the 75 acres. And we're right there in that corner. I'd like to thank you for your hearing the appeal And I want to start by saying we appreciate this appeal process because we feel that planning and zoning erred in their decision to allow the pit after they denied it. We recognize you were not involved in that approval, and we look to you to maintain the integrity of the comprehensive plan by ensuring that the uses of the land are reasonable, compatible with the comprehensive plan, and appropriate for the area. I first want to speak to the issue of compatibility, and I'll try to be as brief as possible. I want to speak to the issue of compatibility with the master plan or comprehensive plan. You know, the land in question is an A1 agricultural zone slated to become urban residential. And I would like to reference more this board's decision to deny a gravel pit for, in my opinion, fewer and less compelling reasons than those associated with this pit. And it's the same one. It was the Rowdy Pit 2009. And I know that every decision must be made on its own merits. And I'm not saying that this pit should be denied because you denied another gravel pit. But the same standards and objectivity and consideration should apply, I believe. Breached word as follows, and this is relevant because it is very similar to this situation. The standards for approving a new pit in a new area is very different than approving an expansion of an old pit or the approval of a new pit that is adjacent to an existing pit. This is a new pit in an agricultural and soon to be urban residential area. It is incompatible and does not fit with the surrounding uses. That was the board's finding. The board found that the land was viable agricultural land as opposed to land that was not viable for agriculture. The commission or the board found that it was even more viable because it could be tied into the adjacent farming operations. And that's the case here. The field is surrounded by other fields which are being farmed. To the north is a large section, probably another 80 acres that has been purchased for the purpose of putting in 10-acre lots for homes. So there'll be a residential area directly adjacent to the pit. The board found that the new pit could have an impact on existing agricultural and other uses and must be considered as a factor. The board found that special consideration is needed to determine its effect on existing uses within the area. If a pit had already existed there, it would not be a significant factor because the adjacent land would already be accustomed to a gravel pit operation. That was your finding back then. But attention must be given to the neighborhood and weight given to the specific site and its unique conditions when evaluated. Testimony in that case established that noise could easily be heard a mile away from the pit operations and discernible up to 3 miles away. The board felt a pit within a half mile away from a school, which is the same situation here, Woodland Hills Elementary, would create an undesirable impact. The board stated the closer gravel operations get to impact areas and identified urban residential areas must also be given some weight when considering the location of the new source, in this case, less than a half a mile. The board also stated there is an impact when any new use is located in an agricultural area, no matter what the use is, whether it be a house, a golf course, a church, or a gravel pit. Those impacts must be considered on a case-by-case basis, and they must be weighed in the evaluation process. We have Woodland Hills Elementary upwind, probably less than a half mile away, somewhere in this. And again, this pit will be literally adjacent to residences, not a half a mile. It'll be next door, literally. The board also stated after having reviewed the neighborhood around this application, it is the board's opinion that the nearby definition cannot be met at this time and it does not meet the clustering goal. Apparently at that time, the applicant or the appellant was trying to say that because there was an adjacent pit, but not by the true definition of adjacent, they were saying located nearby, that it was appropriate to do that. But the board found that it was not meeting that standard of being adjacent. And certainly this pit does not meet that standard by any means whatsoever. There's no other pit around there. It's all agricultural, it's all residential. The Planning Commission found the need for the new gravel pit could benefit the county as a whole, but that the impact to this neighborhood would not be good. This will not be good either. Testimony stated that this use was not compatible within a neighborhood fabric. The board concurs with the finding in that this area is not appropriate for a gravel pit, in that it would be incompatible with existing uses that were discussed above. Not one single factor tips the scales of this decision, but the aggregate total of them all weighs against this request. The application at this time is not appropriate based on the existing conditions. In summary of this, this pit will present several problems which, by any reasonable train of thought, could only lead to the denial of this pit. The board found it could have an impact on agriculture and other uses. It will have an impact on agriculture and other uses. It will represent a danger to the health and safety of residences and children in the school nearby. This is a new pit. They can't use clustering, and I know they're not trying to, but I'm just saying, they can't use clustering as a reason to put it there. It's a brand new pit. This will be a neighborhood, urban residential area. The land has been purchased for this, and it's going to happen. This is not compatible with existing or future uses. I wanted to say a few words now about the floodplain because, and I won't go into a bunch of detail, I'm just going to address how it affects me because I'm right there. In the previous hearings of planning and zoning, the Landons had a study commissioned regarding the floodplain. And their finding by that engineering firm, I believe, if I'm not incorrect, was that there wouldn't be much of a rise in the eastern portion and north and eastern portions where the floodwaters are coming. But in the northwest corner, where I live, there will be not a negative or a 0% rise. I talked to the state floodplain manager. She said that Bonneville County's standards are even more strict than FEMA's. If that's the case, then I believe that Bonneville is obligated to follow their own standards. I believe it would be irresponsible to just say, well, no, there's not a 0% rise, but we're going to do it anyway. We're going to put in a mitigating ditch or whatever. Without a full and complete study, the type of flooding that can happen there is not going to be handled by some kind of canal or ditch. That's going to fill up and flood quickly. So I pay flood insurance. I called my insurance agent and told them about this, and they said, well, we may not be able to cover you because if the conditions are changing under which we provide you insurance now, then we may not cover you. So I called the National Flood Insurance Program, and they said, well, they have to cover you, but if something was put in or changed that changed the dynamics and their risk increases, they could possibly deny taking care of me if there's a flood. And if that was the case, I would have no recourse but to come back to Bonneville County and Landon Excavating and seek legal recourse, because I would be living with unacceptable risk, in my opinion. I urge the board to deny the construction of this gravel pit. Planning and zoning failed to apply their standard. They didn't in the other case, the Rowdy case, they did the right thing. But in this one, well, they did the first time and then they didn't. And it seems to me that they were reckless somewhat and dismissive of all the issues that are involved here. So I plead with you that you protect and preserve the integrity of the comprehensive plan and the obligation to protect the citizens of the county. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before we move on to the applicant, I failed to turn over the page of those who have already testified. So we probably won't be taking any new testimony from them unless it's outside of what was testified at the December 9th, other than the applicants. Bob Hoff and Dale Schneider, Burdette Hoskins, Leah Schneider, and Brad Pratt testified. There was quite lengthy testimony there. On June 3rd, Thomas Hoff, Bob Hoff was an applicant. Erica Ivy, Bernadette Hoskins, James Hoff, I think he submitted. Dale Schneider is an applicant, Monica Sell, an applicant, Leah Schneider, John Brabeck, Gary Severinson, Brad Pratt, David Wolf, and Spencer Allred. We already have your testimony on the record, just so you're aware of that. So now the original applicant, do we have a spokesperson for that? We want to keep it to the spokesperson or the applicant themselves. We are going to be up against a fairly hard time constraint here in about 25 minutes or so. So are you from Landon?
No, sir, I'm not. My name is Natalie Schmidt. I'm one of the local homeowners.
Okay, that'll be after we hear from the applicants.
I think they're online.
Online?
Well, Star was online earlier.
Do we have somebody from Landon Excavating online?
Is Paul representing? I don't know.
Paul was the one, is he online?
Yes, he's
Yeah, I think it is Paul.
We're not hearing you. You'll have to unmute yourself if you're trying to speak. Oh, there's Paul right there. He's trying.
Well, he's doing that. Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, speak loudly, please.
Okay, yeah, this is Paul Snar. I'm with Eagle Rock Engineering.
And Paul, you need to stick to the elements on the appeal and just address those individual elements. We don't need to go through your whole application in the beginning on why you think planning and zoning was correct in this.
Okay, I had to quickly switch offices here because you couldn't hear me on mine, but I guess starting off, I'd like to answer some of the questions that were asked. Current ag impacts. The developer of the gravel pit, Landon, again, is only opening up 20 acres this time, and it should last 20 or 30 years to mine the gravel. They're going to continue to farm the remaining 50 plus acres, fronting 25th East. So, you know, farming is going to continue. What will be mined will be burned, and it'll have trees meeting Bonneville County standards. The need for change. We have several developments that are kind of in the planning phases. One right next to this, about a 10 acre lots. They want to build up next to it. Historically, when you put a gravel pit in, you generally get subdivision growth around the gravel pits. But gravel is a commodity, just like farming. It's you need the gravel for, you know, infrastructure, road building, highways. You see numerous gravel pits put in along highways where they're getting ready to do work. I guess that's kind of in the question number 2. I can't remember the first speaker, her question, need for change. the benefit to the county and neighborhood, noise buffer, the noise will be controlled by a buffer. The gravel pit's only open from, I'll have to probably refer to Landon's on this. We discussed this, but it was 7 to 5 or 8 to 5. But they will have a buffer. They will have trees meeting county standards. So noise will be mitigated. And again, the first phase of this operation is about 2,000 feet east of 25th East. So comprehensive plan compatibility. You know, as she said, yes, it is in a agricultural zone, and it is a permitted use, a conditional permitted use. Thereby, that's why we're going through the hearing. Access, I think question number 5 was assess proximity to fire protection, and then 6, police protection. I don't know if they've commented. I haven't seen the fire department comments or the police comments. Traffic loads, you know, gravel pits, yeah, they start probably March, April, but their peak season is June through September. And they'll have anywhere from 0 trucks per day to 50 trucks per day. That's not adding a lot of traffic. We have done a traffic study. And there was an accident. I've got 3 years of accident analysis that was confirmed. There was no fatalities. But as far as accidents go, and not to say that accidents, they're minimal at that intersection. The road is broken up, the edges of the roads, whereas most county roads are a little narrow. And I did talk to Lance Bates with the county. His major concern was, you know, obtaining the right of way at the time of widening the road, and that's not going to be a problem. The developer is willing to do that. We plat. We would put in a commercial approach for ingress, egress, for safety coming in and out of the pit. And this, number 8, the health department, wind and dust, that's mitigated by MSHA. They regulate that. They watch over that. And it's Landon's will have a water truck on site. I've been down in their other pit, and they keep a water truck going quite regularly when the wind is blowing, so the dust is mitigated. Farm ground is, you know, it's dusty business. I used to farm, and you know, this will be regulated by MSHA. DEQ does not have a lot to do with this, but MSHA regulates the dust, and DEQ will go out on issues of complaints and as well. But let's see. Buffers was number 9. Again, it'll be built to buffers. Idaho Department of Lands has approved this site with the buffers and I think Bonneville County does have more regulation on what type buffers are required, but Idaho Department of Lands has approved that. I didn't know what number 10 was, the availability of water coming from. They will have their water truck on site full time, but they don't use any utilities for gravel pits. They have their equipment down in the pit. Scenery and ecological aspects. Again, this will probably not be seen very well with the trees and the buffer in place. Jumping to the next, the radon. subdivisions, all subdivisions anymore, you'll generally see a fairly deep pond or stormwater collection. And a lot of times, some of these gravel pits, there's one on Sunnyside that was just turned over to the city for a park or something, but it's used as drainage for Sunnyside Road. Once it's hard to tell the future, but when phase one closes, it may be opened up as a drainage pond, or it could be set aside for cattle grazing. So, the farming is still there. It's still a possibility of, cattle grazing once it's reclaimed and reseeded. You have to follow the Department of Land's criteria, and it's got to be reclaimed at the end. So it's got to be reseeded, and the slopes have to be strengthened and widened out. So, cattle grazing is not out of line for some of these pits. So, but again, it is a commodity. Gravel is a commodity that's needed for this area, for subdivision growth, for roadway growth, for fixing 25th East and 49th South. And I think I've hit all of the questions. And if you have any questions for me, please feel free to.
We may, but we appreciate your comments. We're gonna let Steve have a minute to kind of present some of the things he feels like need to be on the record. Natalie Schmidt, I see you submitted an email. You were on the list that we said probably wouldn't have time to testify. Do you have anything you wish to add to that email?
I certainly do, sir.
Do you have it in writing?
Yes, I do.
Could you submit that in writing?
Yes.
Okay, and then Hoskins?
Yes.
You have testified twice. Do you have any comments?
Yes, yeah, it's additional to what
In
was said
addition,
previously.
could you submit those and we'll consider those?
Yeah,
We have, Commissioner Reed said you've got about an extra 10 minutes or so, but we need to get to the point so we can directly ask questions. But can you submit that to Steve, your papers, both you also?
In addition, I have new information that is technical in nature.
Got your name on it?
Could you give us a quick summary within 3 minutes or less?
I can try really hard. I can talk really fast.
Try really hard, because 3 minutes is the max.
Okay. My name is Natalie Schmidt. I own the property at 3280 East 81st Street in Idaho Falls. I appreciate your time today. I know decisions like this are necessary and difficult. Before I get into details, as you probably already know, I just barely found out about this. I'm sorry you've been hit with a slew of emails from me. I'm trying really fast to come up to speed. My relevant credentials are as the following. I hold a Bachelor's of Science in Mechanical Engineering with additional coursework in soil mechanics, radioactive materials, scientific modeling, and industrial hygiene. I've been employed as an environmental engineer, and I've ran an industrial hygiene program for high hazard work for several years, during which time I was involved in national safety health committees. I was also a system engineer for 8 years combined. I have nearly 20 years of diverse technical experience, where a substantial proportion of it has been dealing with hazard identification and mitigation, in particular contamination and inhalation concerns. I'm going to start by saying that the public's perception of risk is rarely, if ever, equivalent to the actual risk. I caution everyone to focus on the facts. Disturbing the 60-acre pit. First, I want to talk to you about disturbing the 60-acre pit, and I guess it must be 80, based on what I'm hearing, because I'm trying to come up to speed fast on this. As I'm sure you're aware, the amount of surface area that will be exposed will exceed that the 80 acres. If you review my previous letter, you'll know I'm talking about soil that has low cohesive properties, and in an area co-located in foothills which will contribute to additional winds. Dust controls under normal southeast Idaho circumstances would be a challenge, but we have some additional factors that will increase the difficulty. General problem is dust are a contaminant and it creates an inhalation hazard. Something that's gaining awareness is the radon. Radon is a radioactive, colorless, odorless gas that is a decay product of uranium and eventually ends up as lead after going through a decay process. It is naturally occurring and can be found in low concentrations in rocks, particularly granites and metamorphic. It is often the single largest contributor to an individual's background radioactive dose and the second cause of lung cancer in the state of Idaho. The Idaho Department of Health and Welfare, along with EPA's map, marks Bonneville County as a Zone 2 orange, denoting a county with predicted average indoor radon screenings between 2 and 4 picocuries per liter, meaning the risk is moderate. Levels vary quite a bit, but do expect them to go up considerably when you're dealing with large amounts of gravel. Inhalation of radon is particularly dangerous because it is an alpha emitter, which can do a considerable amount of damage, in particular in this case, to when it's deposited in your lungs. Let's see, silica. Trying to abbreviate this as fast as I can. Sorry.
If you could just summarize it, saying, for example, radon is an issue, you've got supporting thing.
Okay.
I think we can read through that.
Okay. Let's see. Silica is a serious concern. I would caution you guys that you can wet cut concrete, have no visible dust, and still bust the OSHA PEL for silica exposure. I think you can pretty much say that the nearby homes will routinely probably have dust levels above that due to the co-located gravel pit. Let's see. Water. I spoke about the water table being dropped. The well across the street from my house has a recorded surface level or static water level at 22 feet below ground level. This ground exists at a higher, the ground where this well is higher and directly east of the ground where the gravel pit is to be installed. Plus, in between the two of them is a feeder canal. If they dig a hole in the ground and the water table happens to be high, which would probably be the June timeframe, if it finds its way to the gravel pit, it's also going to be fed by the water from the feeder canal. I would think this would be a pretty serious concern to the people who are thinking about putting the gravel pit in. I think it could be really hard to keep it dry. Also, I'm assuming that they're bringing a crusher that often comes with a wash plant. Where would they be getting their water? The only water that goes with the land that I know is for agricultural uses. Don't know if they were thinking about using it for an industrial application and if that would be legal. Plus, Monica sells well, according to the records I could find through the state of Idaho, is very close to the property where we're talking about. She indicated that she's pulling water at 95 feet below ground for her drinking water, and there's more in here about that. If they take off the first 30 or 40 feet of ground where most of the water filtering happens naturally, are you going to be putting her well and other nearby wells at risk for contamination?
We're kind of getting into areas that have already been testified in the area, and I understand you didn't attend those other hearings.
Yes.
But have you got a quick wrap up?
No, I think you can read the rest of what's in here.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, now we'll have a few minutes. You are
I'm Hopi Solomon. I signed up.
Solomon.
I did submit an email. I wasn't aware of this until very recently, and I submitted an email, just a minute and a half.
Really quick.
Okay.
Commissioner Reed's got a little extra time, but we really need it on the other end.
I'll be very quick.
State your name and address.
Okay. My name is Hopi Solomon. I live at 11605 South Arlington in Idaho Falls, a couple miles south of where the gravel pit is. My comments were about, I drive that road every day to get on my I-9 bus stop. But what I want to say is, I went to a mining college. My engineering degree was from that college. One of my first jobs was at a mine. It was Phelps Corporation mine. I've been to mines all around the U.S. I've been to gravel pits. I've been to quarries all over the U.S. and in Canada. This area, from my perspective, because I drive it every day, I mean, it's a farming or burgeoning residential area. And the fact that this is going to be an industrial operation, it isn't like an industry that's common Idaho Falls. Sorting and segregation operations are very noisy. Firms are not going to fully contain this. And just put yourself, and I'm not a local landowner there, I'm a couple miles to the south, but if I was a landowner right there and someone was going to change the zoning and put a gravel pit operation that's going to operate on just that for 20 years and maybe further, I'd be pretty concerned. I don't like it because I'll drive by it every day, but just imagine being one of those people in the gravel pits coming. I'm all for gravel pit, I'm all for mining, but there are places for it. And really, to me, those ought to be in the true industrial areas in the corridors along what you see on Highway 20 and stuff like that.
Thank you so much. You've covered a lot of things that were already covered. We're trying to avoid that. But
thank you, sir, for letting me
score here.
Hey, Roger, Commissioner Christensen, this is Joe Grober. Would you like me to submit my statements in writing? I'm just online, and we didn't buy our property till after the hearing in the Planning Commission. Would you prefer I did that?
Can you do it right now?
Can you do it right now during the hearing?
Well, whatever you prefer.
Yeah, we have to get it before the end of the hearing. But just in about 4 or 5 sentences, where you haven't testified, because we've got a lot of testimony on the impacts and the property values, and you've heard a lot of it today. Anything other than that, or do you agree with those concerns?
Well, we didn't close on the property till close to the end of the year, so most of this was going on, most of the hearings. I just agree basically with what's been said, that this is not a use that is expected in an agricultural zone, and that it certainly doesn't fit within the comprehensive zone, and the gravel pits last forever. And I think in the long range planning, it doesn't make much sense to locate it there. That's effectively my testimony.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
And submit it to the email that's on the notice. And you say submit your written testimony to our email.
You can still get that submitted before the end of the hearing if you can.
Yeah.
Okay. You are?
Leah Schneider. I live I'm right there on the
You
road.
have testified several times.
I know. I've got new information that I just
Okay,
received from Bonneville County today.
Give it to us in bullet points quickly.
I will. I've got it to present to you. I will. So just so you know, this
We
is
need
our
to
house
have you
right
back.
there.
So
Yeah,
That's our house right there.
right.
That's part of that 80 acres. Okay,
Okay, can I walk through these?
Yep.
Tell you the ones that are already in the record.
okay.
The accidents on the traffic study, I think, are addressed.
I just got that information a few minutes ago,
Right.
and Paul Snar said there were minimal accidents.
Well, I think Steve's gonna address a couple of those things on the road and bridge. I think the other testimony that was here talked about the current pit on North Hit. That's part of the record, and Steve's going to address
Have
the
we
current-
looked at have you looked at their berms and their
Well,
trees?
Steve's going to address that, so
Is there-
engineering study, there's pages of differences on the,
Between theirs and
engineering study.
FEMA?
We're aware of that.
And we have a problem with them having hired it. I mean, how is it not biased?
We'll take that into account.
Okay.
Silica and radioactive.
I know that's
dust,
been covered ad nauseum,
yes.
but I want to give you some distances.
And
You've got elementary school within 2.5 miles. You've got 3 hospitals within 3.5
I
miles.
think those were testified to.
And the entire city of Ammon. I mean,
Need to Google gravel pits near me. Steve's going to show us the relevant gravel pits
right, there are over 20 within 30 miles.
and consider health and safety, and I think that's been testified to.
Okay,
I hate to hurry you along.
that's
but
okay. I
we've got some
understand. We're on a
technical
time
stuff.
limit, but I just wanted to make sure that was in the
All
record.
We'll keep that on the
Thank
record.
you.
Thank you. Okay, Steve, do you want to quickly run down the points and the things you wish to add,
Okay,
including some of these?
in general, the thing I would just want to remind the board, this is a use hearing, and the criteria for approving the use hearings on gravel pits are listed in the zoning ordinance, which they've gone through. Noting for sure, we need to definitely review the previous considerations that we've had on gravel pits. When noting here that we did have complaints about berms and existing berms and tree planting on their existing pits.
Could you elaborate that?
They have an existing pit that's up on 25th.
Maybe turn off the fan, because I think that'll cause interference for those online.
They do have an operating pit that's about 5 miles north of the proposed pit. There's a request on their property on that existing pit that they maintain a berm and landscaping buffer along the 25th Street side of the property. It has not been well maintained or operated. Which has been testified to, the issues we have on the floodplain, which gets back and forth, is there is significant evidence that there is additional flood water coming from the east. I realize it's something that I've debated with their engineer. FEMA documents that there's water. Some of the information that was testified to today indicated that there was breach water coming out of the canals. The breach water was not recognized in their study, and it's something that's significant that should be considered. Qualifying the distances to existing active commercial gravel pits. The closest pit to this operation is the Knife River Pit, which is 3.8 miles to the northwest. The next one is the HK Pit, which is 4.4 miles straight to the west. The existing pit that Landon's are operating, I mentioned that it is 5.2 miles to the north. Currently, there are no other active commercial gravel pits within this area, other than those pits. One of the criteria that we need to address is there a trending situation for gravel pits being in the area where we're expanding, going from an existing pit, developing like uses, similar to like uses, which is recognized in the previous decision. It was mentioned in some of the testimony.
And I noticed you had submitted some of those. We'll make those part of the record. There's 4 or 5 decisions that we can rely on, not just the 1 or 2 we've heard
Yeah,
today.
just all of them are pertinent to review in your consideration, because I recommend it would be consistent in how you consider the gravel pits. So in fact, we have no trend in this area for gravel pits that I can see, and there's no historic use on the property utilizing it as a gravel pit, so that we can't actually grandfather it in. And with issues of the floodplain, I'm sorry that I would recommend err on the side of caution on the floodplain rather than get into trouble later on. We do have a number of homes in the area. Some of them were elevated to be in compliance with the minimum FEMA flood regulations. Their flood study did indicate that there was a rise on the west part of the property as it's developed. They think they have a option of modifying or mitigating that. I do not know how you can do that and not have, and give a no rise effect on the adjacent property. Anything that we do that indicates that we are making a modification to the floodplain, we have to be extra careful on. If we make decisions that are negative to the properties, we are subject to challenge, and FEMA is also subject to review of what actions we take. Any questions?
At this point, I think we'll just skip right to questions that you may have of the appellants and or Steve. I do have a couple that they haven't addressed that were brought up. Request to see the sheriff's review of the proposed use application. Typically, what happens when?
Right. All the applications for any use hearing is submitted to the sheriff's office. If they feel that there's concern or a problem with the use of the proposed change, they will give us written testimony, or they will come in and testify themselves. They don't do it a lot because most of the uses don't create a problem for them. In this instance, they must have felt that there was not a problem with it because we have received no correspondence.
And I'm assuming the same with the fire.
The fire department, in fact, this is within the fire district. The fire district does receive general notices of everything that we do. I am also the acting fire marshal for the county. So I'm aware of this application, what they are proposing in there. If they have fuel tanks or storage, if it is approved, they would have to be in compliance with those issues. But until if this is approved, those facts would not be a factor in the implementation of the fire code.
Okay. Commissioner Reed.
Well, thank you. I guess a couple of questions I would have. So you listed the 3 pits within 5 miles. What is the supply of gravel in those? How long have they been active? Do you have any idea of the supply that's still available with those?
The Knife River pit, there was just an expansion on their property, probably doubling the size of active available ground for mining. The HK pit is off from Yellowstone. That's where they have their current crushing operation, just on the east side of Yellowstone, south of 65th. They probably have half of their pit or more still available for mining.
And how long has that pit been active?
The Knife River pit was originally the Cranny pit. It's been in place since the early 60s or even the 50s. The HK pit was first developed probably 25, 30 years ago. It's been active. That's the commercial gravel pits. Adjacent to that's the Burns pit. Across the highway is Burgraff pit. And those have been there for a number of years. You also have, I'm not going to say the name of it, but there's another gravel pit just on the southwest corner of the intersection of 65th and Yellowstone Highway.
That's okay.
I can't think of the name of it.
Are they, I would assume some of these are in the floodplain or not?
Those gravel pits are not in the floodplain.
Okay, so we do not have a pit in Bongo County in the floodplain?
As far as I'm aware of, I'm not aware of any gravel pits that we do have that are in the floodplain.
Okay. And
There are some old ones, abandoned ones that have been depleted that are in, but no active current pits that we've approved.
I think all of my other questions were answered. I mean, I had some question as far as that I was going to ask Mr. Hoff about the groundwater, but I think that that's been answered. And I do apologize. I just learned this morning that I have to be in Boise at a certain time tonight. And it was just kind of a spur of the moment thing due to some legislators' request. But I can assure you that I've spent hours reading every letter and every piece of minutes from the hearings, and we will thoroughly, I will, and I know the other commissioner will thoroughly review everything that's submitted today. So I apologize if it feels rushed today, but I assure you the decision process will not
I'm
be
gonna make him initial every page that he's looked at.
I can do that.
In conclusion, maybe Mr. Hoff as a spokesperson, is there anything you wish to add that hasn't been covered?
No, I think it's all been pretty covered. You know, the radon thing is a fairly recent thing, and we haven't had a chance to really reflect on that, but my online research, it's a factor that's become more of a factor in the last few months or years. Gravel pits surprised me. Thank you for your time.
Well, and that's something that Natalie Schmidt's testimony is somebody with experience. Really quick.
I just want to say those numbers I gave you on the accidents came from the Bonneville County records. So we're talking almost 200 accidents right there in that 2-mile range within the last 5 years. And that's all on your records. And those all included injury to property and to people.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Anything else you want to add, Steve?
No.
Okay, with that, we'll call this hearing to a close. Thank you for helping us meet the deadlines. I didn't think it would go on this long with all the testimony that we already had, but I appreciate everybody having the opportunity to make sure we're well aware of stuff. We'll take the issue under advisement. As you can see, the normal 2 to 4 weeks on one like this may not suffice. We'll review this. Steve will put together some proposed findings. We don't discuss that among ourselves. Then we'll get together in a time scheduled, usually with the 5-day notice, or if it's on a road and bridge, time that's already has the 5-day notice, there will be a 48-hour, will meet the requirement. It'll be listed as an action item, at which point Steve will propose those. We can discuss it, modify it if we have disagreements. It will be a public meeting, but not a public hearing. So with that, we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Will we be notified?
No.
I'll just early.
I need those back, but we'll be on the folders, so.